This is Barrie, a city constantly evolving. At any time, a whole host of pressures challenge the intricate tapestry of city government. In this series, we will explore the priorities deemed essential for progress, even if they don't always inspire unanimous applause. Join me each week for a candid conversation with a member of our city government as we uncover the stories behind the scenes of Barrie, a city on the move. Welcome to Barrie, City on the Move. My name's Arif Khan, and it's a pleasure to join you wherever you're receiving this content, at home, on cable, or online streaming on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. In this series, it's our goal to give our audience an inside view of the inner workings of a municipality from a perspective of governance or operations, and oftentimes the opportunity to meet with and speak with leaders of third-party organizations that deliver valuable services to our residents. And today is one of those opportunities. I'm pleased to be joined by Shuh, who's the Executive Director of Barrie Food Bank. Karen, thanks so much for taking time to join me.
Thank you for having me, Arif. I appreciate this opportunity to let people know what Barrie Food Bank does for its community.
Absolutely, and we're going to cover a lot of ground today. The goal is to give our audience an idea of really the purpose behind a food bank, maybe what it has been in the past versus what it is turning out to be today and what the future might look like. A little bit of programming, some operations, that kind of thing, discuss the needs. But let's start with a little bit of background, actually, how you found yourself in this role. I believe you joined the food bank in some capacity in 2023, but give us a little bit of your history.
True. I joined as a volunteer in 2023. I started my career with the likes of Procter & Gamble and with Loblaw, Shoppers Drug Mart, McKesson. So I've always been around the food, either on a buy side or a sell side. I was restructured suddenly from my position, thinking, oh, I'm retired. And took care of my mother for a little bit of time, and then after she passed, I was looking for purpose. And so I thought, you know what, I want to volunteer. So my research led me to Barrie Food Bank to volunteer, and one thing quickly became another, and it turns out I have transferable skills, and it was just such a blessing to be able to work for the food bank in various capacities, and now I see myself as its executive director.
Apparently they saw that in you as well, and it's an interesting thing. I appreciate how you actually said that. I'm a firm believer that nothing happens by coincidence necessarily or by mistake. You were meant to be there, and they saw something in you, and it turns out the timing was appropriate as well.
I was looking for a purpose, and I found more than I was looking for. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, let's get into some of that, though, because over this period, I mean, I think in fairness, we had at this point just sort of transitioned out of COVID. Obviously, that was a game changer for pretty much everybody on the planet, I imagine for the food bank as well. And then you found yourself in this role. Give me an idea of, I trust you had access to former protocols and what the history and legacy of the food bank was and has been, and now suddenly, what does it look like today?
Today, so we're in a crisis situation, Arif. It is, when I first joined, even, coming up to 3 years ago, we were barely in and around, maybe 6,000 individuals were coming to us for support. Now we see ourselves, 3 short years later, we're well over 8,100 individuals are being supported by our services. So having been established as an emergency support, we're now needed more than ever before. It's now more than just a crisis. So just for anybody who, I want to continue sort of painting the picture and giving our audience an opportunity to sort of imagine what the food bank is. So for anybody who hasn't had either the opportunity to have their life touched by and served by the food bank, or who haven't had an opportunity to maybe contribute and give and donate to the food bank itself. Give us an idea of sort of who you're serving, who's accessing the food bank right now, and something tells me it's not necessarily who we thought it was. It's changed a lot, and so there's few demographics that we don't see. So increasingly. So predominantly we're seeing folks who are on Ontario Works social support program, folks who are on Ontario Disability Support programs. So they encompass probably about 60-70% of our clients. But we're seeing seniors who've worked their entire lives to afford a retirement and simply can't with the affordability crisis that's going on. We're seeing 38% of our clients are children. We are seeing first-time users, about 400 first-time users who have never needed the food bank before coming to us for the very first time. And we're seeing a lot more working families. So about 20% of our clients have employment income. They're doing everything right, but working is no longer working.
I'm going to let that sit for a minute. That's a pretty heavy statement to make.
So it's not who you would expect. You would think that you would look around to say, yeah, I know who uses a food bank and who doesn't. You can't see that anymore because the affordability crisis is such that, you could have lost your job, or, you're on, can't afford your medicines, or your rent has increased. Food is that only variable in a household budget. Once you paid for your rent, your utilities, your medicines, the only thing left over that's variable is food. And so that part of budgets have become less and less.
We talk about wants, we talk about needs. We talk about, for some, the luxury of the concept of discretionary spending.
Agreed.
But as you mentioned, that there are some constants, and even those constants aren't necessarily constant if the price of energy fluctuates or inflation
rent,
impacts.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think the message that I'm taking away right now is dispel any preconceived sort of stereotypes that I may have generationally received, or just sort of stigmas that I may have subconsciously planted in my brain. Get rid of all of that, because it's not necessarily who we think who's accessing it.
Yeah, it's changing. It's changing. Predominantly, you would have thought it would be people who are on social support, because through legislative poverty is what I call it. People who are on OW or ODSP supports are living below the poverty line that the government themselves has established. So they're, and now we're seeing others who are working and trying to, do everything right, and find that they can't. There's more month left over at the end of.
More month than money.
Month than money.
I'm not gonna let that moment pass me by without saying, I heard what you said there when you said legislative poverty. That's a. Wow, we're only one segment in, and we're already into a few different profound statements. I'm enjoying this dangerous word to use in this particular context, but I'm actually really intrigued by what you have to offer here. One of the things that I recall from a not so recent visit with the food bank was the concept of food hampers. That was a practice. I think it was to assist with planning and budgeting and creating a sense of equity, if you want to, well, maybe not equity, maybe more equality for all of your clients that visit and need the services of the food bank. That program is no longer. Talk to me about, just from that perspective, what's replaced the hampers? So
in April of 2023, we transformed the warehouse to a self-shop warehouse. So prior to that, correct, we used to give out hampers to people, and whatever was in the hamper was the same month to month, and it would contain things in that hamper that maybe you and your family did not enjoy. For example, it could contain peanut butter, and you're in a peanut-free household. And so it was creating a lot of waste and waste and lack of dignity in terms of what was being provided, and it was done because of inventory and ease of. But so we transformed the warehouse to a self-shop model, where our clients come in and they literally grab a grocery cart, and they go up and down the aisles of the warehouse, and every time that they see a sign, it directs them as to what their entitlements are in that category. And so we found that clients really appreciated that change, because now there's dignity of choice. You choose what's best for you and your family. You take the time, you read the labels to make sure it's within your diet. You choose what you know how to prepare and what you like to eat, as opposed to me putting in cream of mushroom soup in the hamper, and you'll never never eat cream of mushroom soup. So dignity of choice is the way that we want to see the way that our clients come in is treated with care and compassion, dignity and respect, and that goes all the way to choosing the food that is best for them.
I really picked that up. You and I trust your board and the people who volunteer with you have really embraced this philosophy, this, I don't want to call it necessarily an ideology, but the ideal that regardless of where you are in life, there is an opportunity to offer each other that dignity and respect you talk about. It is very, it's obvious in the materials that you have going out, in your annual report, and in the website content as well. And it's interesting. I don't think it's a mistake that it happened, or I don't think it happened by mistake. But as you mentioned, sort of those who are accessing and the need, there's a correlation there between who your client was and has now become, that some of these changes became appropriate. More appropriate than ever. Maybe things that were in the subconscious that whoever was leading the food bank at the time didn't necessarily see it. It was seen more as a survival, an opportunity to provide survival supplies, to now, a much broader range of who your client is, and I think that must have triggered somebody to recognize that maybe the way we're doing things is lacking.
It's not just about food. So food insecurity is more. It's about kindness and compassion, how we show up for others. And so the way that our clients were changing required us to change the way that we were responding to our clients' needs. And so we're seeing more and more clients coming in and not being satisfied with that hamper model and not generating waste. And so it was an opportunity. And food banks across Canada are moving this direction. And so it was just a natural form for us. It requires a few more volunteers in order to set up that model, but it was the right decision to make. And yeah.
So in the 2 years that you've instituted this change, what are you noticing about either the outcomes or the engagement level with your clients?
Clients love it. Clients love the self-shop model. They love to be able to choose for themselves. And what they choose one visit may be different than what they choose the next visit. We're also finding less waste. We used to find, clients would return food, or maybe they didn't return and they were throwing it out. So definitely we stand for no waste in our model. So those are the two major factors. And it also takes, time. You're allowed to come into the marketplace and you take your time in terms of what's best for you. Bring your family if you need to, and take the time to make that selection that's going to be best for you, as opposed to just, here's a hamper and off you go. It gives us the opportunity to interact and understand, walk alongside a little bit in that experience to get to know our clients and what are they looking for and what are they missing, what are they seeing, what are they feeling.
So with that in mind, I do want to go to break for a moment, and when we come back from the break, I want to talk about some of the programs that you have. You described over the course of this segment some of the demographic and who you're serving. The seniors, I think you said 5% seniors, a staggering number of children. I believe children would be school-age children as well, so we'll talk about that. And then, of course, I'm imagining there is some marital breakdown and separated families, et cetera, that you're engaging with. So I want to talk about how that information and your data collection turns into programs that you deliver. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Excellent. So stay with us on the other side of the break. More from Karen Shuh, who's the Executive Director at Barrie Food Bank. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Karen Shuh, Executive Director of Barrie Food Bank, and I are having a conversation around the food bank and getting to know the changing face of both the food bank itself and who is accessing services. And Karen, before the break, we touched on a little bit of the evolution of the program itself and, of course, the growing and more, I'm going to use the word diverse, demographic or cross-section of society who's accessing the services. And as you said, sort of in the last segment, things have changed, recognizing the needs, but also really a focus on ensuring that everyone who walks through the door to access the food bank is ensured not only the food itself, but attention and compassion to the dignity of self and the family. And that really struck a chord with me as we went to break. So with all of that in mind, and as you are, I trust, studying who's walking through the door and the growing and changing needs of the community, so too are the programs that you offer at the food bank. Give me an idea of what, based on who's accessing your programming or your services, what are those programs, where are they needed most?
So what we like to do is walk alongside our clients that are coming in. We listen and we hear their stories. And so the evolution, our programs evolve as a result. So for example, Marketplace that we talked about, a self-shop program, but within Marketplace, we identified, the need for lentils and legumes and not just pasta. So now we combine in the section pasta with lentils and legumes, and you choose, mix and match what is best for you. We're not going to force you to choose pasta if that's not something that you're familiar with. We're not going to force you to choose lentils or legumes if that's not. So we meet you where you are. Same thing with our meats. We offer chicken and beef, but we also offer halal chicken and halal beef. We offer vegetarian options. So we try to meet needs of our clients as they're coming through. We took that same concept of Marketplace and then we applied it to our unhoused folks. So we have homeless and unhoused pantry. It's called the Corner Store. And so every morning, folks who are unhoused or without identification can come and do self-shop for themselves in our Corner Store pantry. So it's taking that same best practice, applying it to a different subset of clients. And so the feedback there has been phenomenal as well too. So if you only could choose 8 items to last you for the next 2 days, wouldn't you want to have the time and the chance to choose what's best for you, as opposed to just giving you a hamper and sending you on your way. So every morning from 9 until 11, the homeless individuals can come in, shop for themselves. We offer now milk and fresh and frozen meats, easy open cans of pastas and soups and stews and chilies, easy mac where you just have to add water, things that are curated and set aside for the folks in the Corner Store. So we're seeing about 750 visits to that Corner Store every month. And that was just another way that we can evolve some of our programs.
It's interesting as you're sharing this information, I'm thinking back over the last couple of seasons that this series has been airing, and who I've had conversations with, whether it's the mayor or other members of local government or the Barrie Police Service, etc., members from the library, different people that have come on, and it's every service that is delivered or offered either by the city or city partners is around quality of life. And our members at home, our audience at home, we may have differences of opinions on certain way things are delivered, or maybe how certain members of our community are living or engaging, et cetera. There are lots of, it's a complex world, and there are lots of societal complexities out there that need to be addressed. I actually, I will tell you, I never thought about what you just described because the hamper program originally was designed to be a 30-day program.
Correct.
But you've got a segment of the community who's accessing your services and accessing your product.
They don't.
Who doesn't have the ability to.
Well, they don't have the kitchens. They don't have the stoves, the pantries to be able to put together the visit. One misconception is while clients can come every 28 days to access our services, the amount of food that we provide is not 28 days worth of food. So our clients are telling us it's about a week and a half to 2 weeks worth of food. But still, regardless, those who are in the vulnerably housed situation, they don't have the pantries and the stoves and the freezers to be able to store that amount of food. So we allow those individuals to come 3 times a week, choose 8 items that best represent the next couple of days, and so at the end of the month they're relevant, almost equivalent to if you were to do a full shop.
I mean, I'm just going to camp out on this just for a minute. Maybe it's not the most appropriate word, I apologize, but I was thinking of encampments, and I was thinking about people who are couch surfing, and not everybody's homeless, so to speak. speak.
Right.
They may be jumping from location to location.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have
Living in
ID.
their
Maybe they don't have
car.
a permanent address.
Correct.
Leaving them in their car or a trailer.
Supportive housing.
We've heard lots of stories, and what I'm actually thinking about as I sort of process that maybe one or two steps farther down the chain includes the fact that if these residents who are living in amongst us in our community in one way, shape, or form or another, if they're able to access these services and these foods, what are they not doing? What has it allowed them to not have to do in order to survive? And that could be engaging in other more dangerous activities, whether that's, maybe it's theft, retail theft or grocery store theft, et cetera. The fact that they're able to access services and foods through your program is probably having an impact on what other members in the community are dealing with as store owners, et cetera. So, sorry, my internal mind going, et cetera.
No, but I think it's just the trauma. It's the trauma of being food insecure, of not knowing where your next meal is coming from. So if you know, hey, Barrie Food Bank is there, and I know I can come 3 times a week, or I know I can come every 28 days, all of a sudden in your mind, that trauma. At least you know, hey, I know where my next meal is coming from, and then therefore I can set aside some brain activity for the other activities I need to do in order to go about my day or to get me, out of the situation.
And I think you're right on with that. I mean, I have spoken with mental health experts, et cetera, and when you are at a certain point in your life where the only thing you're thinking about is how am I going to either shelter myself or feed myself or feed a dependent, you're absolutely right that they agree with
hierarchy.
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everything else becomes secondary or not even on the radar.
And that brings me to School Fuel program as well, too, as a natural segue. Because children, if they don't have access to healthy snacks or food in the school system, they have it's harder for them to learn to concentrate. Their social interactions with other children are affected as well. And so we developed a School Fuel program where Barrie Food Bank, what they do is they take their limited ministry funding. They shop on our Shopify website of a curated list of healthy school snacks. We discount it for them by 25%, so it's cost less 25%, thanks to some of our community sponsors, including all the Rotary clubs. And then we procure it, we organize it, distribute it, and deliver to schools every 2 weeks. And so it set out at schools in a judgment-free zone that children between classes can access healthy snacks so that they can learn and thrive.
I'm going to put in a plug here for the Rotary clubs that are in Barrie and Barrie Huronia, et cetera.
Yes.
Kempenfeld, there's a number of them.
There's 3, and they all support our School Fuel program.
And now, with that in mind, for anybody who's at home thinking about, hey, what a great program, what a great initiative, I want to get on board that, I'm going to totally break protocol here.
Do it.
Throw us out, and if somebody is so inspired, how can they participate, and do they have the ability to participate in targeting their donation to a specific program?
100%, or a specific school. If you say, hey, I really have a heart for this school, it's in my neighborhood, you can target your donations to a specific school. We have the founding sponsor is the Pavlik Foundation, huge heart for children in the community.
Pavlik, fantastic.
Yeah, the 3 Rotary groups and RBC. So they have a desire to ensure that the children of our community, have access to snacks, healthy snacks for their day. So anybody can get involved to sponsor. In fact, the more sponsors that we have, the deeper I can discount the amount of food. So this is a flow through for Barrie Food Bank. We don't make anything. This is just in and out, and we use the power of our volunteers to make it happen. So right now we're supporting 30 local schools, which is over half the amount of schools in Barrie, and upwards to 7,600 children have access to healthy snacks in their school day.
Okay, thank you for going there. I was going to ask you that to quantify it, give me an idea of what that looks like. And judgment-free zone, some families, whether they're single income families, double income families, just shift work families where kids are kind of fending for themselves, they're able to start the day with.
Some children are coming to school without breakfast, and some not having a lunch either.
Okay, so I'm going to catch you off guard one more time here. The Canada Food Guide used to be all the rage. And that's kind of been put into question in terms of, well, who's behind it, who's sponsoring it, how nutritious is it really? You touched on, and by the way, one of the many things I am not is a nutritionist.
Nor am I.
Yeah, but give me an idea of what healthy means to you.
And so what we do is, and again, I'm not a nutritionist either, but we work with the Student Nutrition Council of Ontario, Central West, and they help us identify the healthy snacks that are, applicable to either the food guide or to what their rules and regulations are. But think of things like hard-boiled eggs and milk and oranges and apples and whole wheat bagels and whole wheat cereals and made good granola bars, cucumbers, things like that. That children can grab and go, or they can be prepared for them at the school.
So not so much the vending
Yogurts.
machine types of program.
No. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a few things. We're flying through the time here.
Yes.
So we talked about the self-shopping through the marketplace. We've talked about the corner store for those who need to drop in a little bit more frequently and offering similar selection to be able to meet their own needs, meet them where they're at. We've talked about the school fuel program. You did talk about also seniors are a considerable part of your demographic, or maybe a growing part of your demographic.
They certainly are. So seniors account for now over 5% of our demographic. Over 400 seniors come to us. Seniors are the most supported in our society with their social benefits. So it's very surprising that we are seeing increased growth there at the food bank. But we have a couple programs for them too. So if seniors are, bedridden or, confined to their homes, have no other way of getting out, maybe they're also disabled, we have a delivery program. And again, it's volunteer run, so it's not just for everybody. We're not Uber Eats, but for those individuals who have no other way of getting to the food bank, we have volunteers that deliver their hamper to them once a month. We also have, areas of in the community where we put little pantries. So little pantries, we have 10 around in the neighborhood. So hopefully there's one in your neighborhood where we fill it up with our volunteers and with our donated food under the premise of take what you need and give what you can. And so the host locations also fill up those pantries so that hopefully we can meet you closer to where you are and live.
I believe I've seen one at the Innisfil, the YMCA there's a program, and others, so at community centers.
Community centers, local churches, but we try to have them demographically scattered around Barrie, because not everybody lives within, accessibility distance to the food bank.
Absolutely. Just think about that for a second. And as one of the things that stuck out with me as well is we do see the Barrie Food Bank white panel van that is sponsored by one of the car dealerships.
Yes, all of them,
I think it's Georgian or whatever that's driving around. But someone who is accessing the delivery service to home, they're not having a food bank truck pull up in front of their
it's
house.
a volunteer vehicle. There's dignity with respect to that service for sure. But there's some sad stories, of people who, because of where they're living or where they can afford to live, you could have people who are disabled on the second floor of a building that doesn't have an elevator. And so our volunteers are delivering that food, and they're seeing the conditions that those clients are living in, because that's what they can afford.
So with that in mind, we are going to go to break, but when we come back, we've talked about who is the food bank and who are you serving, but we've also talked about now the programming. In order for all of that to happen, it takes the village, as they say, and you've got a lot of partners that there's a codependency, but there's also a mutual respect for the mission of what Barrie Food Bank has to offer. And so when we come back from the break, let's talk about some of those partnerships that you've established. So
Thank you.
On the other side of this break, more from Karen Shuh, Executive Director of Barrie Food Bank. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move, and Karen Shuh, Executive Director of Barrie Food Bank, and are having a conversation around the changing face and shape of Barrie Food Bank, who's accessing the services and the product, the programs that are developed out of it, and now we're going to have a conversation of what it takes to make this happen, this well-oiled, I'm going to call it a machine or organization that is able to deliver such a high volume to a growing and a more diverse demographic who's needing your services. It must take just an enormous amount of coordination and effort. My question is, where are you, who are you tapping into in terms of the minds that help you with distribution, logistics, warehousing, and accessing the foods and donations and the funding that takes to make it happen? And one of the things that really stuck out to me is, I note, and we've had a brief offline conversation, Barrie Food Bank receives no federal or provincial funding to make these services happen.
Yes, that's correct. So, in terms of the funding, majority of our funding comes from individuals. And in fact, a lot of our funding comes from those who used to need our services and now have turned into donors. So about 45% of our donations come from individuals. The average donation is only $158, but we get a lot of $158.
Wow, that is.
And so that's from an individual perspective.
Yeah.
But then the business community and the service clubs and the, are tremendous foundations. I'm going to cite the grocery industry specifically because they're our biggest partner. And so we have 2 vans on the road every day, 6 days a week, recovering food that would otherwise go to waste. And so we have what we call morning run. The guys go out and the grocery stores know when to expect. They set aside, the produce, the bakery, the meat, the dairy, as well as the collection bins that their customers place. And we pick up that. Number one shout out would be Costco. Costco, if they have a pallet of bananas that's just starting to turn, and it's not necessarily, up to their specifications for their clients, they give us the entire pallet. So in total, probably 700,000 pounds of fresh food that was destined for the dumpster, we're able to intercept that and feed the people of Barrie.
And I think it's important that you highlighted it's fresh food. Traditionally, when we think of a pantry or when we think of a food bank, we are thinking of boxed or canned, non-perishable items was always the word out there. You're now actually offering nutritious, perishable items.
Absolutely, because that's where the nutrition is. Right? So yes, the community helps us with their food drives to do the non-perishable because that's what we can accept. We can't accept perishable from, the community. We don't know if they've maintained the cold chain for food safety reasons. We accept only non-perishable. But with your, financial donations and with the gratefulness of local, farmers and the grocery store, we recover fresh food and use our financial donations to purchase. We purchase chicken and beef, halal chicken and beef, vegetarian options, milk, eggs, margarine, cheese, produce, apples, onions, potatoes, to kind of supplement that basket of the non-perishables. We want to make sure that nutrition comes first.
That's phenomenal. So you have established strategic partnerships with the grocery. You might as well throw out some other names. You've got Costco, obviously.
Yeah, Costco number one. Loblaws, huge with their No Frills and their Zehrs chains. Those owners are really committed to their customers and to the community. Shout out to Metro, to Sobeys, to Farm Boy. Hopefully I haven't missed anybody, but I can tell you the heart that they have for the food bank and ensuring that food does not go to waste.
And do you also have some independents as well that you're working with, like the farms? Or
yes, so farmers, local farms, shout out to Harris Farms is huge for us. But we're in that basket with onions and carrots, in the marsh. So shout out to the marsh there and all of those farmers to keep us supplied.
I figured let's give the plugs where they're due.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
yeah. But you know what, the biggest donors that we have, the real estate companies in town, a shout out to the Ferris team, the car dealers, Canada Auto One Group is a phenomenal partner to us, the Rotary clubs, all the service clubs, I can go on and on. I hope I don't miss anybody, but we're so grateful for everybody helping to take care of our own here in Barrie. When there's a need, there's nothing like Barrie to step up to take care of its own.
Absolutely. Well, and in fairness to any of your generous donors, I did kind of blindside you with where this is coming from, but I think you did a phenomenal job doing some recall of who's been contributing. So you've got the grocers who are making food available. You've got individual donors. You've got a huge component of people who have used your services, whose lives were changed because of the service being available to them, who are now coming back and donating, whether it's $150 at a time or $5 at a time for that matter. And then there's the warehousing, the operations, the logistics. The food bank is predominantly a volunteer operated organization. Tell me about what it takes to operate as an organization.
Yeah, so we have about 175 volunteers who are involved in all aspects of the operations, and we have a skeleton staff of 8 of us to kind of manage the day in, day out. We're open late on 2 evenings because that's where our clients are, especially our working clients, are coming to us in the evenings as well. So, first thing in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, we have a whole dedicated staff of volunteers who come and stock the shelves from the night before. And so that whole team of, coming in, and they know their shifts. There's the Monday crew, there's the Wednesday crew, they all get together. Volunteering is almost like our mission within our mission, but it's a very busy place. Everybody's got a job to do. Everybody knows what their job is.
I'm picking up a real sense of community there.
100%, because we're just 8 of us. We don't have the answers to everything. We don't have the resources, but that's where our volunteers fill in the gaps. And so we have volunteer drivers. We have volunteers at intake to do deliveries, to recover from the community, to do food drives, to stock the shelves, to help at checkout, to host when our clients are coming through the self-shop. So we couldn't do what we do without the power of volunteers.
Now I'm going to throw this back at you though, because you started as a volunteer.
I did, yes.
And it was determined that you brought with you a skill set that was transferable, as you mentioned. Are there other roles and opportunities for people who may come with a certain skill set that if somebody's at home right now looking for an opportunity to donate their time and contribute?
We're always looking for people who are handy. Maintenance is one of those things in our building. There's always something that's kind of breaking or running down that can be improved. Somebody in IT, we don't, in something breaks, IT-wise, we don't have that skill set. Legal, human resources, odd jobs, carpentry, you name it. We're a skeleton staff. We are not necessarily trained to do what we do. We do it because that's our mission. That's our purpose. Mm-hmm. So we need help.
Okay, fair.
And with the demand growing as much as it is, we never anticipated that we would ever be supporting as many people as we are. And so, we've had to grow many areas of our organization to handle that.
Sometimes, it sounds to me, the greatest skill set that you could bring is empathy and a smiling face.
You got it.
So if you're not handy but you can smile, I think that's an opportunity there too.
Yes, exactly. And be in it for the right reason. Be in it to ensure that you're there to help our clients get through what could be the worst days or times of their life.
Yeah, absolutely, even if it's only momentary as well.
Correct.
I think you've had some of those.
Yeah.
Tell me a story. There's something that, I saw your eyes welling up as you were recalling who's sort of joined you and who you served and who's come back to serve. There's got to be something that went through your mind right there. You know
what, we're seeing, as a single mother myself too, we see a lot of, sole parent households coming through struggling. We're seeing, marriages dissolve. We're seeing divorces. We're seeing, you might have everything together and then you just realize that, your car breaks down, the rent increases, a marital breakup, maybe there's a spousal abuse. There's things that are going on in the lives of our clients every day that we're not privy to. And so if we can come alongside and we're developing relationships with our clients, we have this wonderful single mom who's, navigating life with not only being a single mom, but being disabled as well, and just bravely managing her life. And if it wasn't for the food bank giving her that sense of support and hope, I dare say, she would be in a worse off situation than she is.
So I promised you that neither one of us would pretend to be an economist or a lawyer or a doctor or nutritionist on this segment, but one of the things that does come to mind, I'm going to tap the mayor as a reference, and also some of my studies that I do in my field. 77% of all Canadians are accessing debt funding, whether that's credit card, lines of credit, second mortgages. So that the strain is definitely palpable right now, and I believe it's close to 47% of households are certainly a paycheck or two away from potential disaster and food insecurity. And as you talked about right off the top, some of the constants that we have leaves a much smaller amount left over for things that might be considered discretionary, including how much food or what quality or what brand of food that we're selecting. So your story rings true right there. With that in mind, I just want to touch on real quick, there are some things that you're not. You said that you're not experts in certain things, but you do have some standards that you adhere to. Give us a brief idea of what some of the national standards or food safety standards that you adhere to.
So as a member of Feed Ontario, we are certified in best practices. So we have the National Standards of Excellence, which we were the very first food bank in Ontario to actually qualify for. So pretty proud of that designation. But what it does is goes through 6 pillars of the organization and sets aside best practices for each, and ensuring that we have policies and procedures in place to be able to run as efficiently and as compassionately as possible. So very, very proud of ensuring that, and we learn from best practices from other food banks as well. So, you know, especially those in Simcoe County, we are the hub for services for other food banks in Simcoe County, so that we can receive food with our warehouse and be able to disperse it equitably throughout Simcoe County. So very proud of the work that we do there for other food banks in our region.
Excellent. And with that in mind, I do want to go to break real quick. When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about maybe the crystal ball that you have, a little bit of what the data is trending towards, what you're preparing for the future, a campaign season that we're going into right now, and really if there's a call, what are some of the needs that you foresee in the near future? So I'll let you sort of marinate on that for a minute while we go to break. And we'll be right back with more from Karen Shuh, Executive Director of Barrie Food Bank. Stay with us. Welcome back to Barrie City on the Move. And Karen Shuh, Executive Director of Barrie Food Bank, and I are having a conversation on really the changing face of who is accessing the Barrie Food Bank, what it takes to operate it, how funding happens, how the magic actually happens behind the scenes, and really a look right now at the future. I want to start with this, though, going back even just 2 years. What is something that you're witnessing today that you never thought you'd see?
I never thought that the demand would increase as quickly as it has. Our demand is rising because households simply can't afford. It becomes unaffordable, with rent and utilities and transportation and medicines all going up. The math doesn't math anymore. And so, we're all seeing it. Wages haven't kept up with the even the CPI, inflation has gone up, 2.4% in the last year over year, but it's 4% if you take a look at food. And so in the last, since 2020, food inflation has gone up 25%. So there's no way that wages have kept pace. And so we're seeing more and more of our households struggling. Any buffer that they had is now gone, and we're there to help try to close the gap as they...
So I'm going to poke the bear a little bit here. We've already set the ground rules that Barrie Food Bank is not beholden to any level of government. You don't receive any funding from them. It's also a nonpartisan organization. The food bank has been and will continue to be serving the community regardless of who's in power, federally or provincially. And now for the poking of the bear as deserved. As you mentioned, just the math isn't mathing. Things have not kept up. We talk about the 2.5% inflation. Let's bear in mind what inflation is, right? It's that the increased expense or the devaluation of currency that makes $1 able to purchase less than it was before. But that 2.5% is in addition to the previous year's 9%.
Agreed.
And the previous year's 6%. So it's not that it's somehow come down to 2.5%. It's still growing at 2.5% beyond the 10% that it was earlier. So I just wanted to sort of put that in perspective. But the math isn't mathing. Wages aren't keeping up with the cost of housing, the cost of fuel, the cost of groceries. And you talk about the Consumer Price Index. It's so many people are fascinated by what it includes and what it doesn't include. And you just said, basically doesn't take into consideration a head of lettuce. which is, you said, gone up 25% year over year.
So food itself in the past, since 2020, food in part of the inflation has gone up 25%. Housing has gone up 26%. Transportation is also far outpacing what the average is. And so that's the piece in people's budgets that, especially in low-income households, they don't have that flexibility. They don't have disposable income. So when households are spending 80-90% of their household's income on the basics, the necessities, there's nothing left. And so what we're finding is, while food banks are here to help in time of crisis, we're beyond crisis now. When we're seeing every single demographic coming to Barrie Food Bank, this is beyond a crisis situation. And so we're really calling on all levels of government, take a look at, and I know they're on these topics, but affordable housing, not just affordable, but geared to income housing is number one. Living wage, when living wage is $24.60 now and minimum wage is $17.60, there's a gap that has to get closed. Take a look at Ontario Works. Someone who is on Ontario Works and as an individual, $733 is all that they receive. And there's a shelter component. So if they find themselves rent-evicted or loss of shelter, that component gets taken away. So how does one dig themselves out of that hole? If you're on Ontario Disability, $13.68 is the maximum an individual can receive. How does one afford a one-bedroom apartment in Barrie who averages $1,700? And the answer is they can't. So while the food banks are here to help, and we want to be part of the solution, only government can fix this problem.
And I appreciate you going there. I'm going to, since we were doing some shout outs and plugs for different people who've made a difference, one of those people is I wouldn't call him a colleague of yours, but a partner of yours in service to the community, and that's Brian Shelley at the United Way of Simcoe Muskoka, and he was recently on the show. And one of the things that he talked about, and I certainly credit him for that, is while folks at Queen's Park or at Parliament Hill are having conversations around housing, that actually doesn't make a difference. What makes a difference is there a shovel in the ground? Is there a door and a roof and a window getting up there in terms of affordable and accessible affordable housing? So you seem to be in, I don't want to say lockstep, but certainly on the same page as him from that perspective. And you're right, it does need to be a wholesale change, and someone needs to make a decision. The question that I might ask our friends in Ottawa, and I certainly think our local federal members of Parliament would agree with this question, is where is Ottawa prioritizing the funds that it collects through tax revenue and their disbursement of said funds? Where are they prioritizing it? Is it abroad, or is it domestically here where our folks need it at home? So that's the end of my rant, my political rant. You can comment if you want, or we can move on to the next conversation.
My economics degree has long since expired, so I'll leave that to those in power and those who have been elected to make these decisions on behalf of our community. Applaud the mayor for the state of emergency for homelessness, for sure, but what we're missing is there's 8,100 Barrie Food Bank clients who are behind. It's the tip of the iceberg. And so my clients here are just one paycheck away from being homeless themselves. And so it is a huge affordability crisis. And again, food banks and other social agencies, we all are working together in partnership, but we can't do it alone.
So I will ask you what might be teed up as a bit of an obvious question, but is there something that frustrates you that is worth sort of shedding some light on?
So most frustrating for me is probably the increase in the demand, for sure. We have a lot of hard-working clients who are just doing everything they can to get by, and it's very frustrating when you, like I said before, when the math doesn't work. And so it's hard, for those clients when they're coming through. A lot of them have never thought that they would ever need the support of a food bank. In fact, the stats are that 4/5 of people who are food insecure never make their way to the food bank. And so whether they are racking up their credit cards, their line of credit, they're selling their assets, they're sleeping on couches or borrowing from friends before they ever are able to make it over our threshold. And that's something that we do want to change. We want to, it's that shame and embarrassment that we want to, encourage people. It's not your fault, and let us come and help close a little bit of that gap for you.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier, many of the clients who access your services, they're doing everything right. And one of the greatest stressors is financial, and that financial stress can lead to marital dissolution, breakdown, etc. Now, all of a sudden, a two-income household is two incomes supporting two households. So there's a lot of duplication of expense there, and and the cycle just continues.
And then for the food bank, the same thing. Food inflation is affecting us too. So the cost of food is going up, so we're spending more money and getting less. And so while it's a double whammy, our demand is up, but the cost of our programming is up as well. And so, we're looking for the community to help us close that gap.
And it's funny you say that because, again, it's it's trickled down to the community filling that gap. And I was going to ask you what that response has looked like for you over the last 2 years as your purchasing power has become increasingly strained and government funding doesn't exist. It's back to the community, that same community that is accessing your services, similar neighbors and members and family members are supporting you. Has the community met the challenge?
We are seeing a lot more of our smaller donors that are no longer able to give, right? So they're probably becoming clients themselves, frankly. So we're looking for the larger donors or those who can to be able to close that gap, to fill that in. And so, if you are able to give financially to help us, we certainly appreciate food and money, but what we also hold dear is advocacy. We shouldn't be doing this alone. We shouldn't exist, frankly. So if you're having those conversations around the dinner table, or bring those up to see how our government can help better support those who need.
I'm so glad you said it, and I didn't have to prompt you for it. You're right, you shouldn't exist, and yet you do. I want to get right to the point, though, because without dancing around it, you've got an ask. What do you need?
So
what's the dollar amount?
Listen, this, it takes a lot to do what the food bank does, and so in this particular season, last year around this time, we were asking for $1 million. And about 60% of all of our incoming donations come in that short window between Thanksgiving and Christmas. This year, our demand is up 16%. We have no choice but to ask for $1.16 million is what we need in order to maintain our operations.
And you're running a campaign right now, and that campaign is?
It's called Close the Gap. We're here, the need is here. We're looking for those in our community. And anytime we put the shout out to the people of Barrie, they step up for their community in need.
Let's go over the camera too over there. Let's talk right to the folks at Barrie. If you're watching this at home, if you know somebody who's ever benefited from the services of the food bank, or if you know somebody who you're wondering how they're making it, and maybe they are needing and they're a little bit shy or embarrassed to access the food bank. The food bank is there, but there is a funding shortfall of $1.16 million. How can people get you the money?
We always say, give us your food. Giving of food is giving from the heart. So drop it off when you're doing your grocery shopping, drop it into the local grocery bins. We have people on the road coming to pick that up every day. So giving of food,
and
organizing food drives. Give us your money so you can give financially. You can come in and write a check. You can go online. You can e-transfer.
And what's your website?
Our website is barriefoodbank.org. Our e-transfer address is donations@barriefoodbank.org. But we also say, give us your time and give us your talents. So it takes 175 volunteers to do what we do. If you have the ability to support us in that way with your time and expertise, we certainly need all the help that we can get.
If you have money, give it. If you don't, and you can lend a hand or a smile, do so. Karen Shuh, Executive Director of the Barrie Food Bank, thanks so much, and I wish you all the best in your campaign, and we'll see you next time on Barrie City on the Move. Take care.
Thank you.